Dear participants, welcome you all in this course Systematics of Angiosperm. I am Dr. Gausia Bashri, Assistant Professor in Department of Botany, Aligarh Muslim University. And with this course, I have helped by my teaching assistant Muhammad Saban Ali, and we will going to in this session learn about the what are the angiospermic plants, why we need to study the taxonomy or systematics of angiosperm. So this will course tells about what we will going to study in these courses. So this will give you an overview the course which we will going to study about in this particular courses. So this lecture is just an overview of the course Systematics of Angiosperms, and you will get idea what you are going to study in this particular course. So starting with the course, that is the introduction, that is the Systematics of Angiosperms. So what are first of all we will going to study about the angiosperm. But before introducing the angiosperm, first of all I would like to introduce about the plants, because plants that are awesome beauty of the nature, and the plant kingdom just don't have only angiosperms, they have a number of plants. So this plant kingdom comprises of thousands of plants, from the tiniest mosses to the tallest trees, from unicellular to multicellular, with high complex organization with a degree of uniqueness. And they also have a very diverse type of distribution, from desert to Arctic zone, from water to land. So there's so wide variety of diversity in their habitat, their forms, and these group of plants are classified into main five categories. They are either algae, bryophyte, pteridophyte, gymnosperms, and angiosperms. And all these are called as a plants. And our main focus in this particular course on the angiosperms. So if we see, all the living organisms are classified into main five categories, that is the Monera, Protista, Fungi, Plantae, and Animalia, according to five kingdom classification. And in this, we are going to study about the Plantae, and in Plantae specifically, we are going to study about the angiosperms. So if you see here, the plants have around 2,70,000 species, in which mosses, liverworts have around 15,000 species, ferns and their allies have around 1,000, and gymnosperms have around 8 and 20 types of species. In this, angiosperms have around 2,69,000 species, and angiosperms are broadly made up of two types of plant, monocots and dicots. And the number of monocotyledon species and dicotyledons are the beauty of the plant diversity, and that we will going to study in this particular session. So how these angiosperms, we can identify which one is a monocot, which one is a dicot. So in this session, we will learn about this particular course group of plant, that is the angiosperms. So but before going, here is just a, before moving forward to the angiosperm, here just a brief of the plant group, different groups of plants. Like if you see the plant, it is divided into mainly two groups, that one groups that don't make seeds, and the another group that makes seeds. So group that does not make seed, they are called as a cryptogam in general, and that makes seed is called as the pendrogam, or they may be called as the spermatophyte. Sperma means seeds. So these group of plants are also known as the spermatophytes, or they may be our pendrograms or angiosperms. And the first group that does not produce the seeds, they have a further three categories. Like the first one that don't make it divided into two that don't have a true stems of leaves. All the plants you can see that have a leaves, flower, that are the higher plants. But beside it, there are some small categories of plant that don't have a true differentiation of root, stems, or leaves. These type of plants are called as a thyloid. And in this further, there's a two categories that don't have a root, stem, and leaf structure. That first one is the algae, and the next one is the bryophyte, or in general they are called as the mosses. So in algae, they also have a thyroid body, And in mosses, they also have a thylaid body. So how will you differentiate between an algae and a moss? So these both structure you can identify. The one advancement that comes from algae to the mosses, that there is a formation of a embryo, while there is a no embryo formation in the class algae. So you can easily identify between in these two groups of algae and mosses, because bryophytes are get advanced due to the formation of their embryo formation and they have a particularly very short sporophyte generation, but they form the embryo. And here in algae there is a no embryo formation, they just have a zygote that germinate into the new plant group. Then the third group of plant is that have a, you can see the root, stem and leaves, and they also have a vascular tissue. So these two groups, algae and moss, they also don't have a vascular tissue. The second group that has a vascular tissue, that is called as the ferns. But there will be no seed formation. So the one advancement from the algae and mosses in the pteridophyte is the formation of a vascular tissue. So there is a mechanical strength of this particular plants are increases. That's why they have a more adaptability to the land surface, because algae prefer the, generally they have a aquatic prefer system, mosses which is called bryophyte called as the amphibians of plant kingdom, and the ferns which are the first plant that have a vascular tissue. So they have a mechanical strength that help into the adapt to the terrestrial ecosystem. Then now come to the next part of plant that makes the seeds, which is further divided into two categories, that with no flowers and with the flowers. So first group of plant that did not produce the flower, that is called as the gymnosperms. And gymno means naked. They also have a naked seeds because they don't have a covering like ovary. The ovules are naked. That's why they have only seed. They did not produce the fruits like conifers, cycas. And the last group of plant that is also produce flowers. They have a seeds. So this group of called as the flowering plants, angiosperms, pendrogams. There's a many names of this particular group of plant, and angiosperm is the most common term because they're producing the flowers. And the common example you can see here is the sunflower, and their angiosperm is categorized for the two type. So our main focus in this course is on based only on the angiosperms because it is the largest group of plant and they evolved lastly on the earth surface and they flourish well. This is the most advanced group of plant, that is the angiosperms, and it is further categorized into two, monocots and dicots. So as we have seen, there is a mainly four groups like Thallophyta, plant with thallus, but there will be no embryo formation. These bryophytes are also have a thalloid-like structure, but they have a embryo formation. So there is a one advancement, that is the embryo formation. In pteridophyte, there is a presence of a vascular tissue that give them a one advancement over the bryophytes. Here is the formation of embryo, and here you can see already written that these plants are the spermatophyte or seeded plants that have a two groups, gymnosperms and angiosperms. So this spermatophyte already they have a two groups of plant, gymno and angiosperm, as we have discussed earlier. And this gymnosperm, as I have told you, they have a naked seeds because they don't have flower and they don't have a covering of like ovary structure. And this angiosperm that we will going to study in this particular course is further categorized into two groups, dicotyledony and monocotyledony. And here listed some families of dicot and monocot. So how you identify which one is dicot, which one is monocot, and further which are the cucurbitaceae member, which are the malvaceae member. So in this course, our focus is to identify these groups of plants. So, first of all, for your understanding, what are the angiosperms? As I have told you, angiosperm, that better known as a flowering plants, are vascular seed plant that produces flower as well as fruit. So, if you have to define an angiosperm, You can say it is a flowering plant that have a vascular seed plants, because vascular plants are pteridophytes also, but vascular seed plants that produces flower. So then your definition is completed, because vascular seed plant is also a gymnosperm, but gymnosperm does not produces flower. So the unique character in the angiosperm is the presence of flower and fruit only, because vascular nature, seed producing, which is also a gymnosperm, but the what unique in the angiosperm is the flowers and their fruits. So any plant which has a flower as well as fruit, you can say that this one is the angiospermic plants, because no group of plants are producing flower and fruits. So this angiosperm is very diverse group of plant. They are distributed all over on the earth surface, and they are about 250,000 species that known for the angiosperm. So you can see there is a large number of plants that belong to the angiosperm, that is around 250,000. So this is a very diverse group of plant. That's why we have to divide it into different types of families, and that's why it is very important to identify them accurately. So in this particular systematics is a scientific study of the kind and diversity of organism, of any and all the relationship between them. So this is the aim of this particular course, is to study scientific study of the kinds and diversity, and especially in this course because we are going to study about the systematics of angiosperm. So this is a just simple definition of the systematics, and here we will going to study about the angiosperms. So it involves the classifying organisms based on their evolutionary history, genetic similarities, and shared characteristics. And the systematics derived from the Latin word that is systema, which means organized whole. So forming the title, the famous work of the Linnea, that is the Systema Naturae. So because they organize the plant into the different types of groups, and that's why he titled his book, that is the Systema Naturae, that published in 1735. So the term systematics first appeared in the Genera Plantarum in the 1737 by the Huxley. In 1888 is often credited to have made first use of the term in article in Nature. So this is the history how the systematics terms had came into the existence. So as I have told you, the systematics is the scientific study of kind and diversity of an organism. And here in this course, we were going to study about the systematics of angiosperm. So you are maybe familiar with another term, that is the taxonomy. Taxonomy is a more familiar term in comparison to systematics, because taxonomy is also branch of biology that deals with the identification, description, nomenclature and classification. So how the systematics and taxonomy is different from each other, that we will see in the next slide. And this taxonomy term first coined by the Epidicandole in 1813 as a combination of Greek word that means the arrangement and nomos means the rules. So taxis, that is the arrangement, and nomos means rules. So in his famous work, that is the Theoria Elementare della Botanics. So first of all, that Epidicandole introduced the term taxonomy, and that means they deals with the identification, description, nomenclature and classification. As you can see in this section, there is a one thing that is missing, that is the phylogeny. Because in taxonomy, we just identify, describe, nomenclature and classify plants, but without comparing the phylogeny. If we see the evolutionary history, then it becomes the systematics. So if you see this particular diagram, that will give you an idea what is the taxonomy and what is the systematics. So systematics is a broader term that's used for the taxonomy, and if we merge the taxonomy with the study of process of evolution and the phylogeny, then taxonomy is mixing with the evolution and the phylogeny that it makes the systematics. So taxonomy is, as I have told you, it is the identification, nomenclature, classification, all these activity process comes under the taxonomy, and when it is equipped with phylogeny, it becomes the systematics. So in this course, we have to study taxonomy of angiosperm as well as systematics, because we will also see the evolutionary history, how angiosperm through the different classification like inner branchial system and taxonomic system of classification. So we not only study the different processes, but also we see the phylogeny of different groups of the plants. So that's why the title of this particular course is the systematics of angiosperm. So, as I have told you, taxonomy, it is a discipline of classifying an organism into taxa, and systematics is the broad field of biology that studies the diversification of a species. So, it just not classify the organism, but it also studies its phylogeny and evolutionary history. So, it governs the practice of naming, describing, identifying a specimen and preservation. While systematics govern the evolutionary history and phylogenetic relationship in addition to taxonomy. So, taxonomy is just classification, nomenclature, identification that make the taxonomy. And if we add the phylogeny in taxonomy, that makes the systematic. So, this is a just one very brief difference in between the taxonomy and systematics, because taxonomy just does not incorporate the evolutionary history, and in systematics we will incorporate also the evolutionary history. So the objectives and aims of the plant systematics is to establish suitable method for identification, nomenclature and description of the plant taxa, to classify organisms into different classes, order, families, genera and species, and to provide an inventory of plant taxa for local, regional or continental needs, and to provide a significant valuable information concerning wild and medicinal plant species, endangered species, some unique plants, genetics and ecological diversity. So systematics, you just not only name the plant or identify the plant, but you also list the plant that become endangered, the list of the plant that is valuable for us. So in this group of plant, you will study a different aspects of plant, not just to identify them, but also how these plants are very important for us, and what are the roles they are playing to our society, and how our species become endangered, and how we can government process the policies for the species that become the endangered. We will also see some unique plants, their economic importance. So this is all about the some objectives of the systematics. So as you can see, the systematic that have a taxonomy first, phylogeny. So it also have a description, because for any plant, first of all, the description is very important. So first of all, we suppose if we have any plant, first of all, we have to describe its characteristics. And for the description, first of all, you have a knowledge how to describe it. Like we have to describe the plant from habit to its fruits. So from habit to stem, leaves, flower, parts of the flower and to the fruits. There are different terminologies that you will also learn in this particular course in the form of a morphology of angiosperm. Because for the description, you always need, because you have to describe the plant in a semi-technical language. And this semi-technical language or semi-scientific language that you know by studying the morphology of the angiosperms. So in this course, you will also learn, a week is dedicated to the morphology of angiosperms that you will learn in this course. So how to write a description, that will be easy for you after the when you will study the morphology of angiosperm. After that, you can easily describe a plant by applying the morphology of angiosperm, the terminologies you have studied during this particular course. Then identification refers to the recognition and categorization of a based on their distinctive characteristics. Like in the first step, first you have to know the how to write the description of a particular plant. Then when you have written the description, then you have to identify the plant depending upon their distinctive characteristics. So this is also a very important steps. And for this identification, there are many tools which play a very important role like floras, monographs, manuals, and identification keys. So all this you will also study in this course in how to identify a plants. You will study these taxonomic documents that help in the identification of particular plant like floras, monograph, manuals, how to prepare a key to identify a particular plant. Then you will also study that like the botanical gardens, what are the role of Botanical Survey of India in identification of particular plants. Then you will also learn about the preparation of herbarium because herbarium is a very important part, play very important plant in the identification because it is serve as a repository of the plants. So first, when we have to identify particular plant, we have to match our specimens with the stored specimens of a herbarium. So it play a very important role. That is the identification, and there's a different tools for identify that is known as the taxonomic tools or taxonomic aids that you will going to learn in this particular course in different weeks. So you will also learn about the preparation of herbarium, different documentation, preparation of taxonomic keys, what are the roles of Botanical Garden and Botanical Survey of India. Then the next step after the identifying, that is the nomenclature. That nomenclature deals with the determination of a correct name of a taxa. So if you have identified, suppose you have discovered a new species. So you have to name it according to the rules of nomenclature, and this is the international code of a botanical nomenclature. Now it is name is changes. Now it is only called as the international code of a nomenclature for algae, fungi and plants. So now its name is modified, which governs the naming of the plants, and it updated every 6 years, and it's called as the botanical code for the nomenclature of the plants. So whole week is also dedicated for the nomenclatures rules. So by studying this, you can learn about how to name a particular plant by seeing this botanical code. So you can correctly name the plants. Then the next one is the classification. Classification refers to the organizing and categorizing organism into taxa based on their shade characteristics. So with distinctive characteristics, we can identify a plant. Then with the some shade characteristics, we can group a particular plant. So it is aid in studying and understanding the relationship among the different organisms and their evolutionary history. As I have told you initially that angiosperm groups have allowed around 250,000 species. So we cannot study each plant individually. So that's why there is a group of plant in which we can study, and this system of when grouping the plant is called as the classification. Classification is further categorized into two groups, phenetic and phylogenetic. Phenetic groups are those in which only they have a morphological characters that is based on the that has a phonetic groups of classification that based only on the morphology, and classification that based on the evolutionary characteristics that is called as the phylogenetic classification. In phonetic, the classification has further two types, that is the artificial and natural, and phylogenetic there are many classification now coming all are the phylogenetic or evolutionary classification. So these are the main two types of a classification that you will study, and you will study the natural system of classification, positive system of classification that have a in which the most important is the Bentham and Engler and Prandtl system, and you also study one contemporary type of classification that is the taxonomic system of classification. Then depending upon the classification of a taxon, it is generally achieved in four successive phases as formulated by Davis and Haywood. So these are the, when you classifying a taxon, it has a four phases and that formulated by the Davis and Haywood in 1963, and these are called as the phases of taxonomy. And the first, the pioneer or exploratory phase, and this is the discovery and the collection phase. Because suppose we have collected a particular plant, and first of all we have to match it. So that discovery and the collection and different member of taxon are collected from different parts of the world by the exploration and identified at least provisionally. So this is the pioneer phase where we are going to collect on that deals with the discovery of a particular plant, that is the pioneer or exploratory phase. Then the next phase is the consolidation phase. This phase is the synthesis phase and mostly based on the morphology. So first of all, we have to collect the specimens in this phase. This phase deals with the study of the plant material in the field as well as in the herbarium, and all the new groups if invented are described. So in the consolidation phase, we have to describe the plants. Thus, a compilation of a flora of a particular group of they are prepared. So in this here, you will have to write the description of a particular plant. So you have to describe it. So for this, you have a knowledge of the morphology. So that is needed for this particular preparatory phase. Then the third phase is the experimental or biosystematic phase that deals with the wide variety of things to a more than knowledge of based on the text analysis. So in this phase, such as the geographical variation, chemical studies, cytogenetic studies, physiological, is fixed fertility relationship, all these are then experimental of. We have to put all these things in a group together. We will going to study all these parameters. So in this experimental phase, we have to study the different activities of particular plants that we have collected, described. Now we have to experiment this and we have to collect these particular data. And the last phase, it is called as the encyclopedic or holotaxonomic phase. This is the coordination of all three phases mentioned above, involve the analysis and synthesis of information and the types of data that develop the classification system based on the transitive relationship. So this one is the last phase, that all we have collected up from first phase, that is the pioneer phase, we have to collect it. Then in the second phase, we have to describe it. In that third, that is the experimental phase. Then all the things which we have collected here, we have to mention it, and we have to now classifying the cis on the basis of their phylogenetic relationship. So this is the encyclopedic phase, or that is the holotaxonomic phase. On the basis of these phases, the first two phases correspond to the alpha, that is the alpha classification, that mainly descriptive and based on only the gross morphological features. As you have seen in the first phase, we have just collected and we have studied only the morphological characters. So the first phase that only have a that called as the alpha taxonomy. Then the last phase that correspond to the omega text classification, that is the data for the three phases are accumulated from the each research. This is termed as the omega taxonomy. So if you see in detail the types of taxonomy, as I've told you, that is taxonomy is basically a fundamental science, but with the passage of time, it has been diversified and categorically classified under the different following headings. As I have told you, that there's a different four phases, and in the alpha there's a classification is an analytical step in which species are identified, characterized and named following a classical approach on the morphological observation only. So here you have to note that there is only focus on the morphology. This is based only on the morphological observations. So alpha taxonomy is based only on the morphological observation, and when new species are discovered at this level, they are named after the linear taxonomy of a binomial nomenclature, and the person who publishes his work first is given to the priority, and all kind of issues are dealt with here. So in the alpha taxonomy, here just only the observation that based on the morphological characters. Then the second one is the beta taxonomy. That classification refers to the placement of species in a natural system of hierarchical categories. So this is based on the evolution of common structural features and numerous features that are easily observable. So first we have to identify it, then that is based on the morphological character. Now we have to give a particular hierarchy that is termed as the beta taxonomy. So it will give you a structural evolution of that particular species. Therefore, the beta classification method refers to the search of a natural classification system. And therefore, each taxon has its own diagnostic function with reference to the basic parameters of a natural classification. So in beta taxonomy, you have to classify the plant and give it a particular hierarchical position depending upon its natural characteristics. Then gamma taxonomy, sorry. The gamma classified the method refer to the analysis of their intraspecific variability and study of evolution. So here in the morphology, then in beta taxonomy we have based on the hierarchical, then the natural characteristics. In gamma, we also have to study about the evolution. So here the much attention has been paid to the causal interpretation of the organic diversity and the study of speciation. So in this, plants and animals have extended a gamma level. So they are still alpha and beta level if the most groups are more common because we don't have a evolutionary history of all the groups of the plant. So in reality, overall, integrate and making it difficult to separate from them. Then type, the next type is the omega taxonomy. As I have told you, in the third phase, that is the experimental phase, we have to done all the physiological, biochemical, phytogenomic data. Then here we have to compile all the things all together, that is termed as the omega taxonomy. So it is the ultimate perfect system that comprises the different aspects to bring all the component of taxonomy under the umbrella to have a fragrance of taxonomy in the real sense. So in model experimental taxonomy, in which taxonomic activities have been enriched with the data from ecology, phytochemistry, phytogeography, cytogenetics, physiology, they all are coupled with the computational. So that makes the omega taxonomy. So it is a ultimate perfect system that is the combination of all the branches and that giving a particular position to the different group of a plant. So this is termed as the omega taxonomy when you have a morphology, evolutionary history, as well as the other parts of the taxonomy like ecology, phytochemistry, and phytogeography, cytogenetics. All this making a when you come involving all these things in your study, that is make the omega taxonomy. Then on the basis of that, if we see the components of systematics, first of all, we have to collect the plant, that is the documentation. Then we have to study it, we have to describe it, that is the description. Then we have to deal with its identification. Then there is a nomenclature particular group of plant that based on the International Code of Nomenclature. Then we have classify it, and in the classification we have to match it with the history and classification. And now with the support of taxonomic evidences, that we have to in the last phase, that is the omega taxonomy, we have to support our taxonomic classification with the help of the morphology, anatomy, embryology, and different branches of the plant sciences. So with this, we get the confirmation of that particular species, and in total, it becomes the omega taxonomy. We incorporate and study the relationship of all these branches in a one group. So this is the different components of taxonomy that we will study in detail one by one in this particular course. So if we see the scope of taxonomy, taxonomy is one of the oldest sciences and it provides thorough knowledge of living species and their various forms. And all the branches of biology are dependent on taxonomy for proper identification of a species, and it has been proceeded further incorporating data from the phytochemistry and cytogenetics supported by proper computation. So this is the oldest branch, and every branch that like either this physiology or cytology or depends on taxonomy, because first of all we have to identify a plant, then we can work on a particular group of plants. This is the most oldest one and it is very necessary for any group of plant to study because taxonomy is very important. So if you see the importance of plant taxonomy, it is very important because to arrange an element or taxa of plant into a more systematic manner so that they can be better understood and could be used easily and more effectively. And to arrange data or information and knowledge about the plants and to indicate the source and genetic relationship, that is the phylogenetic ancestry and origin of plants, and to indicate the distribution and habitat of plant on the earth and their benefits. So in this way, these are the some basics of taxonomy, and with the classification, here you can see these are the number of group of plant. So in this, you will not only study the identification, nomenclature, classification. You will also study these some important groups of plants, because in angiosperm, as I have told you, they have around 2 lakh 50,000 species. So it is not possible to study all the species separately. So there is a group of plants that is called as families, and we will study these families one by one according to Bentham and Hooker system of classification, starting from the Ranunculaceae to Poaceae. That is the one group is that belong to the dicotyledonine, and the last one, the Digraminae, belong to the monocotyledonine. So here you can see a number of plants are present. So at present, might be you are not able to identify them, but after completing this course, you can able to identify these group of plants. Like you can see this particular group, I can say it is belong to the Asteraceae, just because the presence of their inflorescence, that is the capitulum inflorescence, which is also called as head. So in this way you can also easily identify a group of plant just seeing the flower of that particular group. So for the identify this course is quite helpful you in identifying the group of plants. So we will have to study the different families in the last of the 6 weeks. So in this last 6 weeks, you will study about the different types of families from Ranunculaceae, and these families are you will study and you can identify according to Bentham system of classification. So this is the course overview. This is the overview of the course Systematics of Angiosperm, and I'm happy that you have joined this course. Hopefully, you will enjoy this when we will study this particular groups of plants, and you will learn a lot in this course Systematics of Angiosperms. So that's all for the today's session. Hopefully, we will interact in also live sessions. So when you have a doubt, we will clear it, and you can also put your questions when you have any doubt in the thoroughly when your course is running. So in for this, I am ending this session. Thank you all of you for joining this course, Systematics of Angiometry. That's all for today's.